Welcome back to the Fly Culture Podcast with me, your host, Pete Titus. Johannes Bulfin left Finland to settle back in Ireland some 3 years ago. I catch up with him to find out the new direction his life has taken since we last spoke. He's an incredibly modest and gentle person who loves our pastime deeply. Hey Johannes, it's great to have you back on the podcast. How are you doing?
Doing all right, Pete. Thanks very much for having me again.
You're more than welcome. It's that time of year that we get a little reflective. How do you rate your season?
Exceptional. Yeah, it was really incredible in terms of trout fishing. We had an unbelievable run of lake fish, big lake fish, even up to close to 5 pounds. Biggest one I caught was 23 inches, and just the numbers of fish in the local rivers I haven't seen anything like it. And it really makes you wonder what was different about this year. So yeah, I've had a lot of fun. I can't lie.
Now, you used the term lake fish. Do you want to tell us a little bit what you mean about that?
Sure. It's they're basically migratory brown trout that come up from Lough Derg in the middle of Ireland. So I'm based in Ireland, and not a very well-known part of the country in the Midlands. And we get a run of lake fish that come up from Lough Derg and run the local tributaries on their way to spawn. And they're an awful lot bigger than any resident fish. Usually, your typical average resident fish. Of course, there's exceptions. And yeah, they generate a lot of interest, and rightly so.
And for listeners as well, would that be the equivalent of sea trout fishing? Are you fishing for them in a similar way as we might consider sea trout fishing, or are you fishing for them during the day?
Well, they're typically treated very similar to sea trout, and they look very similar to sea trout as well. They have quite a small head, and they're torpedo-shaped. And the local angling community 100% fishes for them, even down to the same kind of flies that you'd use for traditional sea trout fishing. And I myself, I don't really subscribe to that method of fly fishing, because I found some incredibly more effective techniques. And usually when the other anglers are coming to the river, I'm leaving the river, and partially because I have 4 children and a lot of commitments outside of angling, but also because I've found it unnecessary to fish in the dark to catch them. Don't get me wrong, fishing in the dark and catching them is an awful lot of fun. It's definitely an experience in itself, but it's not the only way to do things.
Listeners won't be able to see this, but when Johannes said traditional, I knew that he wasn't going to be going down that route. So I'm thrilled that you haven't done. My guess, I don't know if you want to give too much away. I've got a guess that I'm going to hold up and show him. But are you prepared to sort of share the method that you use for fishing for them?
I cannot. The video quality is so bad I could not see what you are holding up. I'm sorry, but it's not. They're not secrets anymore. Upstream nymphing, upstream dry fly. They're combine the two. Dry dropper. I don't think they're secrets anymore at this stage. And adjust the depth that you're fishing at, and adjust the size of the fly to suit the flow and the depth of the water you're fishing. They're not surely they're not secrets anymore at this stage, even though a lot of people seem very unwilling to break the mold of down and across and flies skating near the surface. So, but each to their own. As long as people are enjoying their fishing, that's the main thing.
So I got that miserably wrong. I wrote streamers down, which I bet you do pull them for them, do you?
That's interesting. You should say that, because when I came back from Finland, I was sure that I would have these lake run fish cracked, and I'd have a method that nobody else was using. And I threw a lot of streamers at them, and they don't. My experience now, somebody may have very different experiences. They'd only chase them. They wouldn't even close their mouth around them, which I found really, really unusual, because as a teen growing up, I used to fish for them with rapalas and meps and spin fish for them, and you would catch fish like that. So maybe I need to give the streamers some more playtime and see if I can get some different results from that.
Something you said to me was really interesting, and you talked about them taking dry flies. And at home, when I'm fishing, when there are sea trout rising, they seem to me at least rise slightly differently. And the sound they make when they're taking a fly is slightly different. Have you observed anything that is a little bit different that's given you a clue that these lake run fish are feeding at the surface, and you've identified that's exactly what that fish is?
In most cases, it's very easy, just because of the size of the fish. You're dealing with a much bigger fish. They have a wide variety of feeding forms. Sometimes they really slash at a very big fly, especially if it's kind of fluttering or skittering across the surface. And they jump a lot, like sea trout. Like, I'm convinced that they hear something that's out of sorts, and one fish will actually go airborne to, almost see if there's something that might be giving them too much credit. I don't know, but it's. I've often noticed that as you're wading, approaching a pool, there'll be no fish jumping or rising, and then as you get closer, and maybe the crunch of the gravel or whatever, one fish will go really high airborne, like right up into the air, and splash down. And sometimes it goes very quiet after that, before you even got started. But back to the rise forms. Usually, when they take a dry, in my experience, it's been quite aggressive. It's not been subtle at all.
Interesting. I know with ours, with the size of fish, that most of them tend to be smaller size, so they may be around a pound or so, but those bigger ones, when they rise, it's almost like more of a sucking noise than anything else. That's only, again, what I've observed. So I've kind of felt they're there, because with these migratory fish, I think a lot of it is knowing they're there. That's part of it, isn't it?
For sure. Yeah, and even when they're there, they're not always easy to fool. So, knowing where they are is only the first step. But it obviously possibly the most crucial step. I mean, there's no point in doing anything else if they're not there.
And if I think it's sea trout as well, I'll give them one or two shots, and then they're either going to eat it or the moment has passed. Have you found similar?
Sometimes, yeah, definitely. And kind of the local fishing fraternity tends to believe that if you hook one, that's the whole show spooked. I haven't found that at all. What I've found more is kind of similar to what you said, that there will be shoals that feed, and there's shoals that will not take anything. And from a feeding shoal, you can catch several fish. I mean, 5, 6 fish, even more. And then from a shoal that's not feeding, it doesn't matter what you show them and what you do, they're not going to take. So knowing when to, usually they do react fairly positively quite quickly if they're going to. So yeah.
Brilliant. And one of the questions I wanted to ask, do these lake run fish have a name? I know there's local terms for these lake run fish.
Yeah, in Ireland we have several names, Dollican and Sonahan and Gillaroo, and these fish are called cronine. So it's that's the local term for them.
Nice. I've learned something today.
I was just going to add to that they've actually done genetic studies on them in Queen's University in Belfast, and they have identified them as the genetically unique variant of brown trout. So that makes them even more interesting.
They certainly sound it to me. You said that you're based in the Midlands. What does that mean from a stream perspective for you? Does that mean you've got lots to go at?
Yes, yeah, there is. But there's two rivers that I have put in inordinately more time at than any other. So those would be the two that I mainly go at. But there's plenty to choose from, and you can go right up into the mountains to tiny pocket water, or then you can go right down to the Shannon to swing streamers for fish that are there. So you really have a very diverse watershed in a very geographically small area.
Did that have anything to do with your choice of location?
No, this is my family home, and they've lived here for generations. And when I moved back from Finland, I moved back here. I mean, it certainly didn't hurt that the fishing is pretty damn good. But maybe if if it was solely based on fishing, you could certainly argue strongly for other parts of Ireland too. But everything as a whole made it an easy choice to move back.
And are there other species that you like to go at?
Pike, definitely. We've come into that season now. Our trout fishing ends at the end of September, and yeah, the pike fly fishing is very good. And I find I get a bit fixated, so it's good that there's a close season for trout, because especially this year I found myself, even when the water temperatures dropped and made the pike much more catchable, I was still going after trout until the very last day of the season. And I don't regret that at all. It was fantastic.
That sounds very, very civilized to me. And how long have you been back now? Is it 3 years?
Yep, correct. A little bit over 3 years.
And so have you found the culture, the fishing culture nearby?
I think it's taken a really positive lift in recent times. I think a part of that is influencers on social media are really connecting with the younger population. So that has to be seen as a good thing, really. In my opinion, I recently had a stand at National Ploughing Championships, which isn't exactly a fishing related show. It's an agricultural show, but I had a stand there, and the amount of young people that came up looking at flies, and fly fishing maybe wasn't all of their thing, but the interest that they showed in some of the pike flies and the trout flies that were on display was certainly I was wrecked after 3 days of talking to people, but very, it gave a very, very good, positive, hopeful impression of the level of interest in angling in general. I won't say fly fishing, but fishing in general. And I think that's, like I said, attributed to social media and the content being created by people. So.
And what about clubs locally? Do you sense they're doing okay and they're keeping healthy memberships?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because there used to be a club on the rivers when I was a teenager on these two particular rivers that I mentioned, and it disbanded and has been for several years. But I do know that next year it's been reformed, so that's positive. I think I think that question could be incredibly localized in terms of an answer. You know, there are fantastic clubs in the country, and then there's probably a lot of areas where there are none. So yeah, it's I would find it very difficult to answer that with any kind of authority.
What about looking at fly fishing across the UK and perhaps a little bit wider then? How does that feel and look to you?
Well, I think it's my own personal view is that I think it's quite positive. It's I think fly fish there. I think there's a quite a bit of interest in fly fishing, and that's just my personal experience. So I haven't looked at facts and figures, but I mean, angling in the UK is incredibly popular. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the most popular pastime. You know, I'm not too heartbroken if somebody isn't a fly fisher. I think I think we're all kind of have a common interest and a common desire to see nature protected and fish stocks healthy. And so, you know, if somebody prefers fishing for carp in a bivvy, that's not that's not a bad thing in my opinion.
That's a really interesting view, isn't it? That you're looking at fishing as a whole, not the subsections of it. Perhaps that's how we could look at it, because that quote that you said, I think I found that quote, and it was like a film from the 1950s somewhere, which I really enjoyed watching. I think that's where that came from. And I don't know if that's those sorts of things are still being quoted, but that quote, I think that's where it came from. So I'm not 100% sure. And that's how we took on it a little bit here, that how fly fishing, if we look at our little world for a few moments, how that can actually grow by embracing other spheres, be it from saltwater, be it, like you say, from carp, pike, many other things that people may want to pick up a fly rod and pursue their target species in a different way. Do you think that's a way perhaps we could be looking at this?
Absolutely, and we should be. I mean, I hope I don't offend anybody, but I think it's very narrow-minded to only fly fish for trout and salmon, for salmon species. There's so much else to fish for out there. I'd love to fly fish for sea bass. I haven't, but I've caught many different species of course fish on a fly rod. I took part in a multi-species competition in Finland where the goal was to catch as many different species on a fly rod as you can. So I mean, pike, perch, sander, obviously all the salmonid species, tench, bream, crucian carp, mirror, common. You know, I mean, catfish would be fantastic fun. I think I think you're really missing out if you only. I mean, I know people have limited time, and then with that limited time, you choose to fish for what probably you're most familiar with and what gives you the most enjoyment. But these days, summers are so hot, water levels can be so low that do you really want to go harassing salmonid species when you could fly fish for pollock or mackerel or something in the sea and have an amazing time doing that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was going to say about the climate as well, that it's a little tricky to deny, and that may be because I think a lot of people and rightly so, have got busy lives. And the moment they get the chance to fish, they're probably going to pick up their trout rod and go to the river, or their salmon rod and go to the river. But there may be situations, and this is where these other, let's call them niche species, but they're coming more into the mainstream, come into play, don't they? And the mullet and all of these sorts of things are, I think people are going to start to look at in a slightly different way, aren't they?
I think they're going to have to, whether they want to or not, unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever stance you want to look at it from. Again, just my opinion.
So tell me about yourself. What positives do you take from fishing and your enjoyment from fishing?
Oh, wow. I mean, it's my 4-year-old daughter who just came in there. She actually had a barbless squirmy worm in the tip of her finger, so that's why she was crying a little bit. But she, so thank God for barbless hooks. This could have been a very different podcast. But she asks me, Daddy, why do you love fishing so much? And yeah, that's basically what you're asking me, and it's such a need almost to connect, to connect and just reset. Really, that's everybody says that, and it's so cliche, but it is. It is true. I mean, if everybody says it, surely it must be true. And you really, you don't have time to be thinking about everything else when you're concentrating on what you're doing, what you're fishing. And usually, if I go fishing with friends, all we talk about is the fly or the presentation or this or that. And it's only when you sit down and put the rods away that you might ask, well, how's the family in this? But when you're actually in the moment and fishing, that's what you're doing, and that must be one of the greatest appeals of it. I think today it might be called mindfulness or something else like that. But I think we've been keyed into that for quite a while now.
And you mentioned about fishing with friends. Does that mean that you like to, when you get some time to go to the river, you might phone up a friend, say, do you fancy coming down? Or do you like to fish on your own? Or is it a combination of both?
Usually, well, yeah, no, I've fished more with people in recent times, to be honest, and quite enjoyed it. Before, I was very much like I would only go fly fishing on my own, and that's the reason I went, was to be on my own. But more recently, yeah, I have kind of a regular stable of friends who will join me on the river, and that's been a really nice development in my own fly fishing journey, I guess.
And for you, does that mean when you're fishing with them that you split up and one person will go one place, you go another, or do you just take it in turns?
Well, if you're going to split up, you may as well just go on your own. So, no, we definitely fish together and fish a pool or a run and take turns fish for fish or whatever. No, definitely we stay together if we're going out together.
And that's the nice thing. I was just fishing with Warren yesterday, and we have, and many other of my friends that I fish with, you kind of know when you've had a good go, particularly if it's quiet, don't you, that you hand the rod over. And that, I think, is how you find out whether you've got a fishing buddy or not, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely. I've really enjoyed sharing some of the findings about the lake trout that we talked about earlier with fishing friends and getting that wow reaction. So that's been nice, and I always learn something from them as well, which is that's what that's part of it. I won't say that's what it's all about, but that is part of the appeal.
So what is it that keeps you coming back for more then?
Well, now it's I don't know. Is now the time to mention the guiding? It's now it's really about introducing people to even to fly fishing. And seeing people's reactions, and I've met a lot of people who have tried fly fishing, found it incredibly frustrating, and then when they get that breakthrough, it's almost a sense of relief in them, that that they tried one more time, and something positive came out of it. So that's incredibly rewarding for me. And yeah, it's what keeps. I mean, that would and is enough to keep me coming back, going to the river. But in my personal fishing, well, it's never the same. It's never boring. Yeah, it's when it's good. You just feel it's good, and you know it's good for you. So I think I had an Instagram post or something, because I do all that stuff now. That don't let those wading boots dry. Not because it's bad for the boots, but because it's good for you. So that's how I feel about it.
That's beautifully put. I haven't seen that one, so I like that. And I should say, and I've said on the previous podcast, aside from his fishing prowess, that Johannes is a very talented writer, and he's written for Fly Culture, he's written for The Drake and other publications, I believe, as well. And I think that's succinctly and beautifully put. You alluded to there that you have moved into fishing, to working in fishing and setting up a guiding business. Knowing you as I do, I'd guess you'd have thought this whole process through a hell of a lot, right?
It's taken a while to get to this point. Definitely, when we moved to Finland 10 or 11 years ago, at this stage, we mentioned earlier I've been back in Ireland for 3. So I wanted to set up a guiding business. It wasn't a realistic aspiration there, move to a country, set up a guiding business, and without having put in the hours on the water, just wasn't realistic. But I had the aspiration then. I may have even mentioned it to you when we caught my first grayling on the
Lid. Yep, the lid.
Yeah. And yeah, so it has been an aspiration for quite some time. It's taken a while to get here, and so yeah. So in Finland, I wanted to do it there, and then Rebecca, my wife, got pregnant. We had a son, and I had to get a steady paying job very, very quickly, and so that sort of got in the way of spending hours and hours on the water and aspirations of being a guide in Finland. But then, a number of things contributed to looking at moving back to Ireland, and knowing the waters here, and having spent my entire childhood and teenage years and early adult life fishing the rivers mainly, to be honest. Here, it just made sense to move back and finally actually make it happen. I mean, I won't bore you with all the all the details of how purchasing the boat and all that kind of stuff happened, but it's the main thing is that it has happened, and here we are.
And how have you found it so far?
Wow. It's like having incredibly severe bipolar depression. Actually, it probably is. It's not like it is having severe bipolar depression, and I don't say that lightly, to anybody who does suffer with mental illness and stuff. I've been there myself too, and do still go there sometimes. So the highs are incredibly high, and the lows are crushing. So that's the reality of guiding, I guess.
It's fascinating what you said about that because I know we were talking on the phone the other day and conditions were quite challenging for you, but you were sort of kind of beating yourself up a little bit about it. But it sounded to me as though your clients were incredibly happy. They caught some fish, and that's sort of personal pride for you, I think, a little bit more than anything else. I got the sense that customers left incredibly happy, but that's the level that you want to operate at, isn't it? The very highest service that you can possibly provide people is so important to you, isn't it?
Of course. And it's probably not possible in any line of work to, achieve 100% satisfaction every time. And in my opinion, it's not right to play the conditions were against us cards very often. That's on the guide as well, to change location and to adapt to the new conditions. So yeah, but obviously, like I mentioned, the trout fishing was so exceptional this year that I was very much on varying heights of peaks. We were definitely up there in the higher stratosphere in terms of the product that was product is the wrong word to use, but the experience that was being given to people. So then to come crashing down to what it was a couple of days ago was, yeah, it's pretty depressing, to be honest.
You don't need to worry about that. And as I said to you, focus on all those wonderful days because they've far outweighed it. And that's personal pride for you. And that's the thing you mustn't worry about in that sense. Your people went home happy. They've got a day off work. All they want is to have a wonderful time. And they've had a wonderful time with you. And that's the important thing about this. And that's, I guess, as somebody new to it, relatively speaking, that you do focus on those aspects of it. But there's been, like we said, so many wonderful days that you've had that you must take that as the standard, and you're going to have deviations from that sometimes, and it's the way of managing that, and they'll be much better and sometimes they won't be quite as good. All that matters is people have a good time. That's all they want from that moment, and you'd give them that. So yeah, please do not worry about it in the slightest. But I know that's personal and professional pride, but I know you're a wonderful angler, wonderful with people. So yeah, and it's back end fishing, and sometimes back end fishing can be challenging, and it's lovely. That moment. Let's talk about that. On those great days when, even on the tough days, that when the net goes under the fish, that first fish of the day is quite an amazing feeling, isn't it? As a guide.
There's definitely relief involved. Yeah, and with the lake trout, so quite often that first fish has been a truly remarkable fish for the client. So that has just amplified that exponentially. But yeah, of course, like no 2 days are the same, and what worked even just the day before might not work today. So there's always an element of relief when you know that things are going to go the way that you expect them to, hope for them to, so on and so forth. It's and of course you're gauging the client's reaction. How special a moment is this for them, and you take you're always thinking of who you've taken fishing, and their, like you said, their experience, and how they're experiencing the day. Like sometimes I can get kind of like, okay, next spot, let's go, and but I've had clients just stop and look up the river and say, this is amazing, and then obviously you're not going to rush somebody in in that moment to move on from that moment. So you're constantly trying to take the day and experience at their pace, and the first fish is very important part of that important part of the day.
And that for me is a sign of a good guide. Something you said was the next day may not be quite the same, and a good guide will notice that very quickly and ring the changes. And that you've pretty much said that's exactly what you're doing. And when you're out on the water a lot, you almost get in a rhythm with the river, don't you? That you feel how it feels. You know when the hatches are going to happen, and that sort of you have almost a confidence, don't you? Because you're understanding what's happening and why it's happening too, right?
Yeah, one of the greatest challenges is water level and clarity, and managing but adapting the fishing to those conditions, and even to the point of being able to predict what's going to happen with X amount of rainfall in Y amount of time, how quickly the river is going to react to that. Do you have enough time to fish that section of the river? And then when that happens, when should you move? Is it going to be just a short shower that's going to color the river briefly and you can wait it out, eat lunch and it'll thin off again? Or do you have to move location completely? And it's, there's you have to be so clued in, because that's what people are paying you for. They're paying you for knowledge and information and being able to manage those situations. And I haven't got it right 100% of the time this year, and I wouldn't have expected myself to. I would have liked myself to, of course, but I'll be wiser again next year. So that's what I think.
And so when you're laying in bed at night and you hear the rain, does that wake you up and you start already formulating a plan?
You should ask my wife these questions. She will tell you that I stress and I worry, and I can get incredibly anxious and easily agitated, and I'm swearing at the rain, and it can't be easy to look at a person worry about something that they have no control over. But like I said, it's you have to make that call as to, are you going to cancel? Is it that bad? Or do you go out and it's and it's terrible, because of the conditions, and you didn't cancel. That's never a fun situation. So I've had it go both ways. I've cancelled days because I thought it was going to be bad, and then gone out and fished myself because obviously I had the day off. Well, supposedly maybe I didn't have the day off. Maybe I should have done something else with it, but I went fishing anyway, and the fishing has been good. And then you're kicking yourself. And then I've had it go the other way, like the 2 days I spoke about. Maybe I should have possibly cancelled those 2 days because the pike fly fishing was so tough, and I possibly should have known that it was going to be so tough. So I've had it go both ways.
Tell me what your guiding ethos is. I think people are probably getting a sense of this already, that you care deeply about the people who have handed over money for you to look after them. But what is your ethos?
Well, first and foremost, it's about the rivers and the fish that we're fishing for, and I've thought about that before coming onto this podcast as well. But there's probably a fine balance as to how many people you should even take to a particular part of the river. So you 100% have to consider that. You can't keep going back to the same pool day after day after day after day, and just hammering the same fish until you basically drive them out of the pool. Or you have to spread the pressure around. You have to be very conscious of that. Probably all anglers at some point have a bit of a crisis of conscience or some sort of soul searching, because we do undeniably care very, very, very much about the fish, and especially the fish in this case, but the environment as well that we're fishing, that we're interacting with. But then you know, you do cause a fish a certain level of stress by catching it. Undeniably, I mean, surely that can't be denied. And so you try to minimize that, and obviously all the wet hands, and don't lift it out of the water for more than a few seconds, and all these things that people are incredibly conscious of. But for me, it's I have to be so conscious about spreading the angling pressure that I am taking people to the river to subject it to a certain level of stress. Have to be very, very cognizant of that.
I like that. I like that a lot. What do you like to guide for most?
Well, let's just clarify that I started this guiding business in June this year. And like I said, the trout fishing was off the charts in terms of numbers and size. And in terms of people's casting ability and how close we were able to get to the fish, and the caliber of wild fish that even very inexperienced anglers were able to connect with was just incredible. It really was. And so for now, it has to kind of swing towards trout a little bit, but a massive amount of the business is actually based on pike fly fishing, and the largest investments of money and effort have been to facilitate pike fly fishing. So I have, and like I said earlier as well, I get into sort of a one track mind. So now, I'm not thinking about trout anymore, other than I might go and have a look at when they're up on the spawning beds, and just to check in with them. But apart from a fishing context, my mind has now flipped 100% over to pike, and that's the riddle that I'm working on now. So I think, well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, sometime around April, when the pike fly fishing is good and the trout fly fishing is good, it's very, very difficult to. In April here, I'd probably go for early April. I'd probably still go for pike, because they're the bigger fish at that time. And then the trout, obviously, on lighter gear, feel like the bigger fish. Maybe, I don't know. That's a really unclear answer. So it depends on the time of year.
That's a very clear answer, and precise as well. And so, does that mean that you're going to be able to offer pike fishing and trout fishing for multi-day events, sort of things?
Yeah. I've had people book a couple of days in a row. That's been the most up until now. But certainly springtime, my goodness, that is obviously not when the pike are spawning. So that tends to come, in my experience, depends on water temperature, obviously, but usually it's the last week of February, first week of March, around about there. But definitely, if people were to book end of March or the beginning of April, you can 100% go for trout and pike on different days, and yeah, quite an enjoyable experience, I would imagine, for people.
Great. Here's a little bit of a fastball for you, but as someone who is incredibly modest, and I think people are getting a sense of that, yet is a highly talented angler, has marketing what you're doing on social media been easy or difficult for you?
Oh, God. I think I've sold out. I feel like I've sold out a part of myself because of it. It's It's getting easier now because I've done it so regularly and forced myself to do it and put myself in front of the camera. But I hope that in a few years' time, I'll just have a core group of anglers that come back again and again, and I won't even need to market and throw myself out there. And there's already signs. There's already signs of that. People there, in terms of the numbers of people that I've taken out, there are a really heartening number of return customers already, and so that's definitely my long-term social media goal, is to not do it.
Do you remember me phoning you up?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I phoned up Johannes and said, "This is Uncle Pete here. And this isn't such a nice Uncle Pete, but I want you, when you do your social media, you're bloody good at what you do. Don't be afraid to tell people you're afraid to do it. Because again, even your posts were incredibly polite and incredibly modest and were lovely and heartwarming, but you're really good. And don't be afraid if you've had a good day of sharing that sort of stuff, which I'm seeing a little bit more of now. But I'm thrilled that you're embracing it, certainly in short to medium term. Are you excited for next year?
Survive the winter first. I'm very excited for next year. I'm very excited for next year. Of course I am. But I have to be excited for now. Now is now. And with the pike fly fishing, now it's I have puzzles to solve that. We've had an unseasonable downpour of rain that has blown out the River Shannon that I would usually fly fish on. Last year it was completely fishable till the end of well into December, I think. Definitely the end of November, and now it's at full blown winter heights, and it's a Kellows, so that's basically a flood meadow where I guide. So the river is exponentially bigger than what it is in the summertime, and I have obviously the fish have more water to swim in, so I have puzzles to solve. So I'm not thinking about next year, to be honest. I'm thinking about right now.
Good answer. Good professional answer. I like that one a lot. Tell me something. Because there'll be people who are listening, and I really, really hope that they get a sense of you as a person and what a wonderful person you are. And I should also say, as I always like to, that Johannes hasn't asked to come on here. I happened to speak with him the other day and I said, why don't you come on and tell us about how your first season of guiding has actually been? But if people really like the sound of what you have to offer from a trout fishing perspective and a pike fishing perspective, what about if they're traveling from somewhere? Is it easy for them to go stay somewhere?
Yeah, that's been certainly an aspect of starting the business that I haven't or had not thought much about, and that's the level of collaboration with other local businesses, so restaurants and accommodation providers. And to be brutally honest, I need to get better at that. But there's lots of local accommodation in towns of Burr and Banher, and yeah, it's nice to meet the owners of these establishments, and they're very interested in what I'm doing, because if they have people over, they like to be able to tell people about activities in the local area and get them to stay longer. And it's not a monetary thing entirely from their point of view either. I mean, they're interested in their customers' enjoyment too. They'll come back if they have a good experience. So
Nice, like that. You've touched on pike, and we've talked about them a little bit. What's a tip that you'd love to share regarding pike fishing with listeners?
a tip regarding pike, it's probably a lot more accessible than you think. You probably have a canal or a lake that holds pike somewhere close to you, and you probably have a 7-weight rod lying around the place, which wouldn't be a typical pike rod. Maybe a 9-foot 9-weight is sort of the 9-foot 5-weight of pike fly fishing. If you know what I mean. But even a 7-weight throwing, say, large trout streamers, and you can get started, and all it really takes is one pike to take that fly, hopefully right at your feet, and scare the bejesus out of you, and we've gone down a whole new rabbit hole. So be warned. It's suddenly you'll be selling your apartment and buying boats and upending your family to Ireland, and things can get out of hand. Be warned.
I think that's a pretty good one. That is a pretty good one. So, are you going to be busy tying pike flies over the winter?
I am going to tie some, certainly. I have arrangements in place for others to tie my pike flies for me at the moment, because I kind of hope that I won't have time to tie pike flies, if that makes sense. I hope that I will actually be taking people fishing and leaving the tying aspect to others. But it is, at the same time, I've thought, I was just watching Gunnar Brammer, I think it is, on YouTube, and some of his bucktail tying techniques, and I was thinking, I really need to do that. That actually looks enjoyable in and of itself. And my now pike are extremely lenient critics when it comes to the quality of your fly tying. So that's not the issue, but I'd love to do more of it, really, and I probably will, to beat away the winter blues a bit.
And as a fishing guide, are you getting used to your flies at times having a short lifespan?
Oh yeah, it's there's a few branches on the rivers, especially the trout stream, that look like they've been decorated for Christmas already, and it might be financially viable to actually go and saw the branch down and get some of those back, but I haven't done so. And yeah, absolutely. And that's part and parcel of it. And you certainly can't get upset about losing flies. Like, that would just be incredibly short-sighted. So yeah, it's part of the job.
Yeah. Where I used to guide, I had a tree I called the Klinkhammer tree, because it had more metal in it than wood. And I think if I could shimmy up a tree, I'd be a very wealthy man. But it's funny, isn't it? You're sometimes, when you're guiding, you can see where that cast is going to end. And at times I'd be saying, just tilt your rod over a little bit whilst getting my fly box out ready to replace the leader that came back to me. And you kind of know it's going to happen, and you don't mind. Like I say, the really important thing, isn't it? And I said it earlier, is that people have got a day off work, and when they want to have fun, it doesn't matter if they stuff a cast, it doesn't matter if they miss a fish, it doesn't matter if they get caught in a tree. They just want to have a good time, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah. I can't quite. You hear these stories about guides who get very irate if a client misses a fish or an opportunity, or I can't wrap my head around that at all. That just doesn't compute with me on any level.
And you think, in some respects, in the world that we live in, the social media world, the grip and grin, or whatever it may be, which is the guides, stock in trade, it's their advert, so I kind of get that as well, that perhaps that is a missed opportunity if a nice fish comes off. But it doesn't matter, does it? I think if you're a good guide, a good person, people find you, don't they?
Don't get me wrong, I'm devastated if a big fish comes off, but it's for the client. It's not for me that I'm upset. There's any amount of big fish on my camera roll on the phone that haven't been put up all over social media, and I'm just delighted that they were caught by the client. So it's there's always tomorrow for that big fish. If you're connecting with big fish that rarely that you have to get upset about it, something's wrong somewhere.
And there's another clue about Johannes's modesty, that all these nice fish he's been catching haven't been going out there. So Uncle Pete might have to have a word with you again after this as well. So we're just coming up an hour now, and here is the dreaded one, the question that everyone dreads. Have you got a song? You're driving to the river, you're driving to a day's guiding, you're about to pick up your people for the day or meet your people for the day. What's the song that sets the tone for that journey?
God, I don't know if it's the song that sets the tone for that journey, but it's a song that has set the tone for going for what you really want to do and what's meaningful to you. And it's a Finnish band, Poets of the Fall, and the song is Lift. And I actually wrote, like probably 10 years ago or something, I wrote a very detailed comment under this as I don't know why I did it, I felt I had to. And it's strange because hundreds of people have liked it and commented on it, and it obviously, the song touched the nerve, not a nerve, that sounds negative, but it touched something. Well, maybe it was a nerve, because it triggered something in me that I wasn't content with where I was, and I had to make a change. So that's the song.
There you go, folks. Poets of the Fall. Go have a look at that. I promise, I keep promising this, and apologies that I will update the Spotify page, but I haven't done it for absolutely ages. But you can just go look that one up and listen to it. What style of music is it?
Rock, kind of quite energetic. There's probably a post something or another title to add to it, but I'm not familiar with it. But Poets of the Fall generally kind of slightly melancholy music. But, that one has a good tempo to it.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for that. Now, can you, for listeners, and I hope listeners have got a real sense of the gentle nature of Johannes. He's hiding his light, as he always does, under a bushel, and I fish with him a few times now, and I know how good he is. I know how good he is with people. I know what a good person he is as well. And I really want what he's doing to succeed, because it's wonderful when there are wonderful people trying to do good things in fishing and make a go of it. And I guarantee you that you hang out with him, go fish with him, that you're going to have a great time with him. So, Johannes, can you tell us the company name and how people can find you?
Yeah, for an hour of talking, it's probably a good time to say the name of the guiding business. Watershed Fly Fishing is the name of the business, and watershedflyfishing.ie, the website, Watershed Fly Fishing on Instagram, Facebook, even TikTok, shamed as I am to say that. I think I'm on LinkedIn too. I don't know if there's a social media platform where I'm not on at the moment, and anyway, that's the way it is.
So if nothing else, go give him a follow. Let's support good people in our community. Give him a follow, see what he's up to, and let's see if we can give him a little bit of support as well. So, Johannes, is always lovely to speak with you. I know we speak relatively regularly anyway, but it's lovely to hear the story. It's lovely to hear your honesty, your openness and candor. I wish you every success with what Watershed and what you're doing there. I know you're going to do this. I know you're going to pull this off. But I'd also like to say a big thank you for being a guest again on the Fly Culture podcast.
Thanks, Pete. I'm very, very honoured as always that you think of me. That was very, very pleasant.
Well, everyone, this has been another episode of the Fly Culture podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this one. As ever, there's going to be plenty more coming very, very soon. Thank you so much for listening.
The Fly Culture podcast is brought to you in association with Fly Culture, a quarterly published magazine owned and run by fly anglers. When it comes to fly fishing, we've got you covered.